Y'all been asking for some more small batch cooking for two recipes, and this is for Thanksgiving dinner. Cooking for two, Thanksgiving dinner. We've got some small batch recipes, good recipes, and I hope y'all enjoy it. So y'all sit back,
20 minutes.
relax, get you a cup of coffee, and join me for cooking for two.
We're going to go ahead and get our rolls put together too. And if you want to double this recipe, go right ahead and double it. Because this is going to make 4 rolls, which is plenty for me, Mr. Brown, for 2 people. But if you're wanting rolls, some left over for maybe the next day, just double this recipe. But a lot of y'all, some of y'all are cooking for just one. And so 4 rolls would be plenty. But if you're like Mr. Brown and I, as much as we love bread, as much as we love hot rolls, this would be plenty for us. That way, not thinking, well, we can go in the next day and eat, a bunch more rolls. But that's not a bad thing, really. But you can also, if you want to double the recipe and just make 8, but you just want 4, you can actually freeze the other 4 and have them for another time. So either way, you still got a small batch, not a huge batch of rolls made up when it's just 2 y'all or just 1. And so many of y'all have been wanting these recipes. And in my new cookbook that'll come out sometime this winter, it will have my cooking for 2 recipes in there. A lot of people ask me if I just do 2 different cookbooks, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put the cooking for 2 recipes in with my other recipes, because it's making a cookbook is a big process. So I'm going to get it all done in one cookbook, and like I said, I will let everybody know when that comes out sometime this winter. But let's get on with our dinner rolls for 2. We've got a 1/2 cup of warm water here, and we got a teaspoon of active dry yeast, and I've got a tablespoon of sugar that's going to go in this recipe, or you can use a tablespoon of honey or maybe a sugar substitute. But I sprinkled just a little bit of sugar in here, and that helps to activate your yeast. That just kind of feeds them a little bit. But we just need our flour. You can use all-purpose flour, or you can use bread flour. And I think I'm going to use bread flour. I think I've got a scoop in here. So you need 1.5 cups. And what I like to do is I like to scoop my flour. First, I like to fluff it up, and then I scoop it out. I don't bang my cup up against the side of the flour bin, because what that does is it packs it down in there. And I just scrape off the top. There's 1 cup, and we're going to do 1/2 cup. It's hard sometimes for me is to do such small batches, because all my life I've done big batch cooking, especially cooking at school, but feeding my own family. So, but adapting to these recipes will save me and Mr. Brown money, and not just money, because I'm not making big batches of stuff and it going to waste or anything, but it's just easier. Not as much waste or leftover when you're just cooking for 2. So we've got our 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour or bread flour, and we need 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm going to be using olive oil on this. If you want to, you can use regular, just vegetable oil, or you can use 3 tablespoons of butter. And then we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to mix this up a little bit with my hands. And we're going to go ahead and pour our yeast and water in here. Now this is a good recipe too. Now if, like today, you know, if your dough seems a little bit too wet, just put you a couple sprinkles of flour in there, which I'll probably have to do. Now if it was a really, say I had the wood cook stove going, which we don't because it's not cold enough yet, I probably wouldn't have had to add any more flour. But you don't want to add so much that you make your dough too stiff. Never add too much flour. So that's just about right. It's all coming together. It's not real too sticky, but it's just right. It's a real soft, pliable dough. I'm just going to kind of knead this around just a little bit since I got it where I want it. And sometimes if you have to, instead of putting flour on the dough, just put it on your hands. And that'll help a little bit too. I have got so many recipes for cooking for two. I've got a video making a small loaf of, a mini loaf of bread for two. And I'll put all the links to what recipes I've already done cooking for two down below in my description box in a link. So I think that that's needed enough. You can see how pliable that dough is. And I'm just going to cover this up and just let it sit for just a little bit before I come back and make my rolls. So while that's sitting, I'm going to go ahead and make my cornbread for our small batch of dressing. Southern cornbread dressing. So we're going to go ahead and get our cornbread for two ready to make our southern cornbread dressing for two. And what I'm going to be using is, since I'm going to be using just a few chicken breasts for our main chicken instead of turkey, no sense going out and buying a big turkey or even turkey breast, not when it's just two. So what I chose to do is to just do some chicken breast. You can do a couple pieces of ham. I'm not going to be doing ham. Ham's, you know, that's something that we can either fry up or we can just put a couple pieces in the oven and just put a little bit of brown sugar and butter over it, or make you some kind of glaze that you like. And, you know, it's easy to do a couple pieces of ham. But I will be doing a video on cooking a whole ham. Let's see. So we'll have our chicken, which we'll cook here in just a little bit. And so we can get our southern dressing. Now, a lot of y'all up north, y'all like stuffing. Here in the south, we do cornbread dressing. So there's so many really good stuffing recipes out there. And I wish that my family really liked that stuff too, because I think that I would like a lot of the different stuffings that I've seen recipes for. But my family grew up on southern cornbread dressing, so that's what we'll be doing today. If y'all have never had southern cornbread dressing, please try this recipe because I think you'll really, really like it. We'll even be making just a little bit of gravy to go with that too. So we're going to be, I've got my oven to 400, and I'm going to be making mine in my little cast iron skillet. If you've got it like a 6x6 baking dish or a 6x6 cast iron skillet, something like that to bake this small batch in, that'll work. If you're using a dish, spray it real good. I've got my cast iron skillet in the oven heating up with just a little bit of oil in it, or lard, whichever you use. And I'm not sure, I think that one may be an 8x8 instead of a 6x6, but that's okay because it's going to work. Either way, we're making cornbread dressing out of it. So all you're going to need, your dry ingredients is a half a cup of all-purpose flour and a half a cup of just regular yellow or white cornmeal. Not cornmeal mix, just cornmeal. I'm going to put about a half a teaspoon of salt. Now, if you were making this small batch of cornbread to eat on the side, and you like it a little bit sweet, add just a little bit of sugar. But I'm not adding sugar to this cornbread. And we need 1 3/4 teaspoons of baking powder. Now, I've had people ask me that don't keep just regular cornmeal. They keep a cornmeal mix to make the cornbread, which is awesome because I use that a lot too. I like Aunt Jemima cornmeal mix when I'm making my cornbread. But I always keep just regular cornmeal for different reasons, different recipes. I always keep some in my pantry. But when you're making cornbread dressing, you don't want it sweet. You don't want any sugar in it. So my rolls are back here just kind of hanging out. And when they have rose just a little bit, we'll make our rolls and let them poof again before we cook them. Okay, so we got our salt and we got our baking powder. We need 1 egg. Some people just put the yolks in their cornbread. I can never think ahead of time sometimes, but I have got a bunch of egg yolks froze in the freezer. And what I like to do, if I'm thinking ahead, is take some out and I'll just add extra yolks to anything that's calling for eggs in my recipe, and that just makes that recipe that much richer. So we got our 1 egg, and we got a 1/2 cup of butter. We got a 1/2 cup of milk. I'm using my homemade buttermilk, and it's really thick, y'all, so I may have to add a little bit more. Yeah. Plus I've got, is it 3 tablespoons? 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And that's all that is. Now you may have to add just a little bit more. If you're using buttermilk, especially your homemade, it may take just a little bit more. But the recipe calls for half a cup of milk. But because my homemade buttermilk's so thick, and I shook it up, y'all. Woo! I even started up. Now it's in the floor. So I keep my cultured buttermilk going. When I'm getting low, I always keep 1/4 cup of my cultured buttermilk that I've already got on hand. And when I see I'm getting low, I just add the rest of this pint jar with regular milk. And then I set it on the counter anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. And after that, I put the lid on, I shake it up good, put the lid on, and I put it in the refrigerator. Okay. That's looking better. Probably wouldn't hurt to put just a little bit more. But like I said, you can just use regular milk. I'm going to put just a little dab more, y'all. But yeah, that's a better texture. Okay. So we'll get this in our skillet after I wipe my mess up here. If I'm not making a mess, I ain't cooking. That's my motto. Okay. I'm going to get my hot skillet out, but if you're using a baking dish, just spray it good and put your batter in it. This, I should have looked. I've got a 6-inch and I've got an 8-inch, and I just grabbed this one, and it's looking like from this side is 8 inches, so. Just just going to spread this around a little bit. If Mr. Brown sees cornbread or smells it cooking, he's going to have a piece, y'all. It don't matter if it's going in dressing or not. Mr. Brown loves to crumble up cornbread in a glass of cold milk. Sometimes he'll do that at night for a snack. Okay, we're going to get this in the oven, get it cooked up, and then we'll let it cool off so we can make our southern cornbread dressing after a while. No, Mr. Brown has not. In the years that we've had this old gas stove, he has not oiled my hinges yet in my oven. I told him not to. I said I love the sound of it because it reminds me of my grandma's stove. I knew when she was baking because I could hear that oven door open up. One of my subscriber friends bought this for me a couple of years ago. It says, as southern as cornbread in a cast iron skillet. And that's the truth. You don't get much more southern than that. And we've got our cornbread done in our cast iron skillet for our dressing. So I'm going to let this cool off, and then we're going to start getting other things together. I'm going to go ahead and get, Mr. Brown loves sweet potatoes, but he likes them a certain way. Now I know a lot of y'all like the sweet potato casseroles and all that, but Mr. Brown likes his simple. All you gotta do is just take, since we're cooking for two, one small to one medium sweet potato, and I just bake it up. And sometimes I even do it, early in the morning, then just let it sit out and then cut it up. Or they have canned sweet potatoes or canned yams. I know Walmart carries them, it's a great value, but I just drain them if you want to use the canned ones, or if you have canned some up out of your own garden like I have. Do it in pints. That way you don't have too many. Unless you want some for the next day, do it in quarts. But this is a pint of sweet potatoes that was canned up a couple of years ago. And I just drained them. And now we're just going to fix them very simple. And just throw them in the oven, because that's the way he likes them. Pretty much what I've done. Let me get I've been melting my butter. And I got about 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar in this cup with a good tablespoon of butter. Now, even though he likes these sweet with brown sugar, you can do this, because I'm fixing to pour just a little bit of maple syrup over it too. But I'm also going to sprinkle it just a little bit, about a pinch of salt. And there went my alarm. That tells me that something's, it could be a deer, it could be a squirrel, it could be anything. That's what we're hoping for anyways. Okay. Ow, that's hot, y'all. Okay, what you're going to do is just pour this butter and brown sugar with a little pinch of salt. I'm just going to pour it over the top. Now, this is going to make a thick glaze on it. Now, he don't like stuff like marshmallows and stuff like that on top. To him, that's more of a, a casserole. He just likes them just like this. His mama, this is the way she would do it in a cast iron skillet on top of the stove. And I've done a video doing that. And it's just sliced up sweet potatoes that's been cooked. And she'll layer them in the bottom of a cast iron skillet, put them on the stove. Just sprinkle a little brown sugar with some butter, maybe maple syrup, and that's the way he just loves them. Sometimes simple is best. So, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get just a little bit of maple syrup. I have to keep my maple syrup in the refrigerator anymore because we don't eat it fast enough or use it fast enough. And if there's just a little bit left, I've noticed sometimes when it's sitting in my pantry and I go get it, it'll have mold on top of it. So I've been keeping it, since we're not using as much with, the kids not being home and stuff, I keep it in the refrigerator. So just a little bit of maple syrup. I mean, it's that simple. Now, if you want marshmallows, at the very end of heating this up and watching it caramelize, throw you some on top of there. Maybe crumble up some pecans. But, like I said, Mr. Brown just really don't care for it that way. Now, he'd eat it, but I know what Mr. Brown likes. So, it's that simple. I'm going to stick this in the oven. Really and truly, since the sweet potatoes are already cooked through, probably about 20 minutes. I'll keep an eye on it. You just want them to glaze up and caramelize on top of the sweet potatoes, and warm the sweet potatoes up. And it's about that simple. So really and truly, this would be one of the last things that you stick in your oven. Or you can just ahead of time and just stick them in the refrigerator. And then when it's time to do it, just stick them in there. And you already have it ready and just throw it in the oven. Okay, let's make up and get it in the refrigerator a nice Ambrosia fruit salad. Now, there's all kinds of Ambrosia fruit salad recipes out there. I'm just adapting this to myself, to what I have in my pantry and my refrigerator. I'm not going to go out and buy extra stuff to make it. So what I found in my pantry is I had 15 ounces of mandarin oranges. I had a can of fruit cocktail. I did have cans of peaches and pears, but I need to use this fruit cocktail up. And it's got cherries and peaches and pears in it, and a few little grapes. And I had some apples. So this is one small apple, a 15-ounce can of mandarin oranges. Now, if you want to, you can use a smaller can of the mandarin oranges and then fruit cocktail. And, I figure even though this is more than, a little bit more than we'll eat in one serving, I love Ambrosia the second day. In fact, I think it tastes better the second day. And so this is something that we can eat on in a few days, but it's not such a huge batch that we won't be able to get it all ate. So we're just going to stir that up a little bit. And then I found that I had a few marshmallows left. That's about a half a cup. You don't have to put marshmallows in it. I also had, I always keep a lot of coconut, shredded coconut, because I cook with coconut a lot. I make a lot of pies and just different things. So a half a cup of shredded coconut. This is already looking good. Now, the only other ingredient I'm going to put in there here besides some pecans, because I do have a handful of pecans. If you don't have pecans, but you have walnuts, or if you don't have any nuts at all, you do not have to put them in here. This is about 3 tablespoons of sour cream. You can also use 3 tablespoons of a plain yogurt or a vanilla, any kind, really any kind of yogurt. And the Greek yogurt would be best because it's good and thick. And that's all this is. You're just going to mix this up good. Now make sure that you drain your fruit really well, because you really don't want them juices in there making it watery. I love fruit salad, so does Danny. And most of my kids do too. So if I was making this, I would triple the recipe for a lot of people. But I have several different fruit salad recipes. It just depends on what I've got in my pantry at the time of which kind I make. Groceries are high, y'all, and I do not anymore stress myself out on if I've got enough money for a Thanksgiving meal, because I use what's in my pantry and in my refrigerator and what I put up, because I guarantee you it's going to be a wonderful meal whichever. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add maybe some nuts. I've got some walnuts here that need to be used up. I'm just going to break them up. Now, if you've got maybe an extra jar of like maraschino cherries sitting around in the refrigerator because you've used some of them, throw that in there. In fact, I think I do have part of a jar that I may throw in here just to make it look a little bit prettier. But you've seen how simple that was. Throw that together. And like I said, this is enough for us to eat at a serving, and then there'll be a little bit left over for the next day. And I will have all these recipes down in the description box. And some of them I'll have at the end of the video. I'll have screenshots of them so you can screenshot it. Make sure there's enough in there. So there we go. That is our Ambrosia salad for two. Using what you got in the pantry. If all you've got is maybe some mandarin oranges and an apple, use that. If all you got is fruit cocktail, use that. Use what you have. So I'm going to put some plastic wrap over this, stick it in the refrigerator, and that'll be done. Okay, I did forget something. And you can do this with a sugar substitute. But I need to put about a tablespoon of sugar in that. I forgot. Like I said, just put, if you don't want to use sugar, put some sugar substitute in it, or leave it out. It's good either way. That sugar just gives it a little bit more sweetness. So there we go. Okay, let's get our rolls in the oven. You can see they've rose. Just gonna punch them down a little bit. This is a 8x8 cake pan. Really, you don't want anything any bigger than this. Probably a 6x6 would be even better, or 5x5, because what's going to happen, it's not that it's bad, but your rolls are going to kind of spread out, and some people might like that. Mr. Brown loves a thinner roll, just like he likes a thinner biscuit and thinner cornbread, but that's just up to you. Now, because of my years of pinching rolls in the school system and making so many, that's what I'm going to do here. Otherwise, you can just divide it in fours if you want to, and that might get you a more even rolls too. So I may just do that. Just cut them as even as you can, and that will get you your rolls more even, I guess. Mine probably won't be because I can't cut them even, but whatever. I don't care. But what we always done is just pinch them out, because you'll get a smooth roll that way. Or you can take them. I think this one's got too much on it. And just roll them in the ball of your hand, just like this. First, you can kind of pinch them together and roll them.
And I know this one's going to be bigger because I can tell it's too big for my hand. I can tell it's going to be. Just get them as even as you can. Doesn't matter how perfect they are or anything else. And because there's only 4, so what's going to happen is they're going to spread out a little bit, so they won't be as tall. But that's okay, because they're still going to be delicious. There. Oh, Miss Lori's getting picky. Okay, so I'm gonna stick this back in my the oven that I'm not using right now, and let these proof probably just for about 15-20 minutes, and then we're gonna cook them up. Rolls are going in 350. See how they turn out. I'll turn my timer on. 20 minutes, maybe. Okay, our cheesy au gratin potatoes. We're going to get those together. Let's see if I can find my spray, my olive oil spray. I forgot to put any in my little sprayer, so we're going to use this. It says to use a 7 by 5 inch baking dish. This is what I'm using. Not sure. I know it's deep enough, but it'll work. You need 1 large russet potato. Or this was 2 small ones here. So I sprayed my dish. Now all I'm going to do is just layer my potatoes. Half of my potatoes on the bottom. This would be good with the yellow, Yukon yellow potatoes. We're going to put in, on top of our first layer of potatoes, we're going to put 1/4 cup of sliced up onions. Now I will put links down below in the description box of my regular Thanksgiving dishes to feed a big crowd. Okay. We're going to put a little bit of pepper over the top of those potatoes. We're even going to put some salt on top of the potatoes and onions. Now I've got a heaping full tablespoon of flour. What you're going to want to do on top of this first layer is take that flour. Let's see, you're supposed to sprinkle all of it. Yes, all of the flour, just like that. And then we're going to put, this is a tablespoon of butter. And let's see, I've got, the recipe calls for 1/2 cup of cheese. I've got more than 1/2 cup here, but we're going to sprinkle this on top of the first layer too. I'm going to say put anywhere from 1/2 to a whole cup of cheese. This is just white cheddar cheese. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to put another layer of the rest of our potatoes. This is a really easy way to make au gratin potatoes. You don't have to, make sure they're thinly sliced too. You don't have to make a white sauce or anything like that. You're just meshing up one dish.
going to put some more butter on top of this. Set the last layer. About a tablespoon of butter. Can't have too much butter, that's for sure. Then we're going to put more pepper. And just a little more salt. Okay, we're going to sprinkle some more cheese, so the rest of your cheese. So you want a half, however much you use. Put half in the middle and then half on top. Okay, now what we got here is a 1/3 cup of heavy cream and a 1/3 cup of milk. Now if you don't have heavy cream, just use, if you got evaporated milk, canned evaporated milk in your pantry, use that and put 2/3, and just pour this over the top, just like that. And if you feel like it needs a little bit more milk, just put you a little bit more in there. In fact, I think I will. I'm using evaporated milk because I didn't have any heavy cream. Yeah, that looks better. Now, if you want to, you can put a bit more pepper. I'm not going to put any salt, but I am going to put just a little bit of nutmeg, not much. Over the top. Okay. This will go in a 400-degree oven, and anywhere from 40 to 50 minutes. And what you want to do is put this on a cookie sheet, especially if your dish isn't deep enough, to make sure that nothing comes over in your oven. It says to cook it uncovered. Yeah. They're uncovered. So they're going to cook 40 to 50 minutes. I don't know that it'll take that long in my oven. I'm going to say 40 minutes, but we'll check them. They need to be fork tender. So there is your potato, au gratin potatoes for 2 ready to go in the oven. And I don't care if you're cooking for 2 or if you're cooking for 20 or 30, you still, Miss Lori still has a mess in her kitchen. Our rolls are done. Don't they look good? And I think they're just the right size. Now I'm going to I melted some butter, probably about a tablespoon, and then I put just a little bit of honey in there, but you don't have to do that. And I'm just going to put this honey butter on top while it's still hot. We love going to different restaurants sometimes, if it's a special occasion, where they serve you the homemade bread and then they bring out the honey butter. So good. So there we go. There is our small batch of hot rolls ready for our dinner. Okay, we are going to start making our cornbread dressing. I've got my cornbread here ready, cooled off. Got a couple slices of toast here, good and dried. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to saute some onion and some celery in our skillet. I've got Danny's sweet potatoes back here. They're done the way he likes them. Butter and brown sugar. You can even sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on that if you want to. Let's see. I'm going to use just a little bit of olive oil in my pan. I need to get this in my dispenser like ASAP right now. I don't like pouring it out of that can, but that is some of the best olive oil. And I like to look and make sure that I'm buying olive oil that's pure D olive oil.
Okay. So we got our pan on. We got a little bit of olive oil in there if you want to. Now, another thing I gotta do before I forget. We need a half a stick of butter with your olive oil. I almost forgot the most important part of this was the butter, y'all. So half a stick of butter. Put your little olive oil in your pan so that your butter don't burn. And then I've got a half of a small onion cut up, and you need probably just about one large stalk of celery. This is celery that I've got frozen in my freezer, and I just took a handful out just so I'll have it when I need it. But you need this extra butter that you got in here for your dressing. That's why I put a half a stick. I'm going to go ahead and put my veggies in here. Now, since I'm using salted butter, I'm not going to put any salt in this. But I will be putting pepper and stuff in my dressing. So I'm just going to cook this and let the onions and the celery wilt down a little bit. Okay, what are you doing, Miss Lori? Well, we got to get, I'll put my rolls over here. We've got to get our cornbread crumbled up for our southern cornbread dressing. Now, if I was making, which my children and grandchildren absolutely love, if I was making a big pan of chicken and dressing like I do for Thanksgiving and Christmas every year, I would be adding chicken to my dressing. But today we're not doing that. We're just making the dressing with no meat in it. But if you wanted to, you could. I keep my own home canned chicken in my pantry. I have a video doing that, and it's very, very handy to have, that's for sure. So my cornbread is cooled off. And I may have to save Mr. Brown a piece of this, that's for sure. What you're going to do, you're just going to take it and you're just going to crumble it up real as fine as you can get it. Probably not as fine as Frog's hair, but pretty close. If frogs have hair. I used to work with somebody, you say that, you say, how you doing? She'd say, I'm fine as frog hair. That's pretty fine, isn't it? But just crumble it up really good. Ooh, Danny would like that crunchy bottom on that. Okay, we got our cornbread crumbled up. I'm using one of them small bags of crackers crushed up, or if you don't buy the little ones, just use a half of a sleeve of crackers. I've got, now if you got some leftover biscuits from the morning or whatever, use that. I'm just using some leftover, this was some homemade bread that Danny, he ate some for breakfast, and the rest of it was getting kind of dried out. So I just toasted it, and now I'm just going to put it in small pieces here in my dressing. But if you have a leftover biscuit, and that's what I do, I start, I usually start about October and putting leftover pieces of heels from my bread, leftover biscuits and stuff like that. And if I have leftover cornbread, I'll stick that in there. And then you can also, if you're making a big batch of southern dressing, like I do all the time, and I have a video on that, you can make your cornbread ahead of time, cool it off, break it up, and then stick it in a big freezer bag and put it in your freezer
until time to, the night before that you're going to make your dressing. Just take that cornbread out and it's ready for you. Okay, these, I don't like the way that the crust is feeling, so I'm not putting that in there. I don't want to make my dressing, I want to make it chewy. So, we got some leftover dry bread, a half a sleeve of crackers, and then our small batch of cornbread. Now I want y'all to do this to your taste. Because some people like a lot of sage, some people don't like any sage. I mean, to me, it's up to you. But I always put poultry seasoning in my dressing. And I usually just eyeball it. Let's see. I'm going to say start with a teaspoon of poultry seasoning. And then I've got some of my fresh garden sage that come out of the garden. I think this is last year's. I got some whole sage on top of it. So what I need to do is find me a teaspoon, and this is sage out of my garden. It smells absolutely wonderful. It's just regular garden sage. Let's do a half a teaspoon, and then I'll just go from there. Now usually what I can do, and I learned this from making so much chicken and dressing at school, that of course we've done it in big old bins full, is that I would pick some up and smell it. If I could not smell the sage or the poultry season, I just would add a little bit more. A little bit more sage. And like I said, if you like stuff really sagey, you put as much as you want in it. Okay. We're going to call that good. And sometimes, like my grandma did, before she put the egg in it, she would taste that cornbread. And I can tell you, I'm not going to put no salt in here, because the cornbread itself has plenty of salt. Put a little bit more poultry seasoning and just a little bit more sage. So what I'm going to do in my recipe is I will put what I think I started with, and then you can just add to it. It's the best thing to do. Okay. So what I do is the whole leaves of my sage, I just stick back on top of that, because I like leaving some of the sage whole for when I'm making, like, trying to think, roasted chicken and just different things that I want a whole leaf for. Okay, we got that. Now we need our sauteed celery and onions. Now, if you like a really oniony taste, put you some onion powder in here too. Put you about a teaspoon, and I'll put that. Let me get some. Because even though you put onion in there, sometimes it just don't have enough onion taste to me. But you don't want too much now. Just a little. Maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon is what I put on there for this small batch. Okay, we're just gonna mix this up. And this is the beginning of your southern cornbread dressing. Now, additional things you can put in here: chicken, turkey, Italian sausage, breakfast sausage. Okay. We're going to put 1 egg, I've got 4 cups of stock. I'm not gonna add all of it yet. I'm gonna add about half and then stir it. Now I know this will be more dressing than you'll eat at a setting, but this is a small batch of dressing. Now let me tell you what you can do. Of course, you'll want to eat this probably some on the next day, but you can also freeze this. Put it in a good container and freeze it. And the next time that you want a little bit of dressing, you can thaw it out in the refrigerator. And then warm it up. Now when I make dressing for Thanksgiving, it's a big pan full. I think this is a good for 2 people though, and to have some leftovers. But this would feed 4 people very easily. What I'm looking here is for a loose consistency so that my dressing is not dry. And that's pretty loose, just like that. So I had 4 cups. I'm going to say add probably about 3.5 cups is good today. I'll put 4 cups in the recipe down below, but it didn't take a whole 4 cups. It just depends. Just depends sometimes. Okay, let me get me now. My grandma, when she made her dressing, but this is not grandma's dressing. I mean, this is pretty much grandma's dressing, just a smaller version of it. But she would put, of course, we always cook the giblets and the neck and everything when she was cooking the turkey. And to make the gravy, but she also would put boiled eggs in her dressing, and sometimes she'd put giblets in it. So if that's something that you want to put in there, please add that to it. Maybe it'd probably take 2 boiled eggs and probably maybe a half a cup of cooked boiled giblets, which would be really good. It gives everything, them giblets give everything a real good umami taste to it, and it does to dressing too. Let's see. I'm going to get me a dish. And you're going to need probably either 8x8, a 9x9 dish to put that in. So, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and spray my dish. Put my dressing in here. I love being able to go to my pantry and do this without running to the grocery store to spend extra money, and you're still going to have a wonderful meal without spending $200 for one meal that'll be over in about 20 minutes, you know. So I'm going to stick this in a 350 degree oven. Usually my big pan of dressing takes about 45 minutes to cook. This one, I'll check it probably at 25 minutes. I'll check it and see where we're sitting. But that is your small batch of Southern cornbread dressing. Okay, we're going to be making one of Mr. Brown's favorite, and that is a German chocolate cake.
But we're not going to be making a big German chocolate cake. We're just going to make German chocolate cake that you'll probably get about 4 good slices or 4 good pieces out of. This is a 6-inch springform pan. It's really the smallest thing that I have to cook a cake in, and I use it all the time when I'm making small cakes. You can use 4-inch cake pans and just do it in, a couple of them. But I'm just going to put the whole batch in this one, and then I'll cut it in half. But you're going to need 1 ounce of German chocolate. I've got a couple tablespoons of some coffee. This was brewed this morning. Half a cup of all-purpose flour, half a cup of sugar. 1/8 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 cup of room temperature butter. We've got 1/4 cup of buttermilk, 1 egg, and I think it's a teaspoon, I can't remember, of vanilla. I'll have to look. So that is your ingredients for your small batch cake, German chocolate cake. And when we get this baked, get this in the oven, we'll make our German chocolate topping to go on top of it. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is mix our dry ingredients. We got a 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/2 cup of sugar, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. Let's mix that up good. So that is your dry ingredients. Now we're going to be putting buttermilk in this, so we don't need any baking powder. Sorry about that. So now we need, our buttermilk. We got 2 tablespoons of some leftover coffee. Now this is optional. If you don't have a couple tablespoons of coffee, just put 2 tablespoons of water or milk. And then we got 1/4 cup of buttermilk. So I'm mixing my buttermilk with my coffee. And we know that coffee and chocolate, it just does something that just makes that chocolate taste so much better. Okay. Now we're going to take our butter and we're going to mix it up pretty smooth. Now usually, and I should have, you need to cream your butter and your sugar together, and I just dumped it in there with my dry ingredients. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix this up. Just kind of get this creamed up with my 1 egg. I've got 1 egg here. And let's see, about a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. So I'm just going to mix this all up with my butter. And my buttermilk and coffee is what I'm going to do. Get that mixed up good. It's all going to come together anyways. And then we got our melted chocolate. Now I just melted this in the microwave, but I done it in 15-minute intervals to make sure that it doesn't get scorched or seize up on me. So if you were doing this, mix your sugar, cream your sugar and your butter up. I just got ahead of myself by putting the sugar in with my dry ingredients. Either way it's going to come out.
Make sure I got everything. And we're just going to put it all in here with our dry ingredients. I'm going to get this mixed up real good before I put my chocolate in here. And I need to put that on something. My house is pretty cool today, so my room temperature butter was not real soft. But it'll be okay. Now if you want to, use a hand mixer to mix this up really good. Okay. Let's see. Salt, buttermilk, sugar, creamy, egg. Now we're going to put in our melted chocolate. So this was 1 ounce of German chocolate. And if you don't have German chocolate and you've got maybe some semi-sweet, just use it. I have substituted several times in making stuff that called for German chocolate. This right here for baking. And I always have semi-sweet. So you can use it. And we're just going to mix this up in here real good. And like I said, if you want to do this with a hand mixer, feel free to do that. And then we're just going to pour it into our prepared pan here that I've got sprayed. Put it in a 350 oven. And you can see the color. That's the right color for German chocolate cake. It's always a real light brown. I'm going to try to get some of that butter incorporate a little bit better. Okay. I'm just going to put this in my cake pan. And what I'll do is, once I make my my frosting, my German chocolate coconut pecan icing to put on here, topping, what I'll do is I'll split my layers, and then I'll put filling in the middle, then on top. And this is pretty much about the right size of a cake for me and Mr. Brown, because we don't need a whole big huge cake. And sometimes when you're going to different potlucks and stuff, there's so much desserts that sometimes just making a small cake like this is good. Of course, you can never have too much desserts, can you? Okay, this is going to go. I'm going to go ahead, even though I know it's okay, I'll put it on a cookie sheet and put it in the oven. And I'm going to watch it probably about 20 minutes maybe. I'll check it at 15, and we'll start making our coconut pecan frosting to go on top of it. Okay, for our small batch German chocolate coconut pecan frosting, we're going to need to put 1/3 of a cup of whipping cream. Now, whoops, I don't have whipping cream, but I do have evaporated milk, and that's what I'm using. Now, usually when I make a big batch of this frosting, I do use evaporated milk. So, 1/3 cup of either whipping cream or evaporated milk. And we need, let's see, we need 1 egg yolk. We need our sugar, which is, we've got, how much sugar do we have? Sugar, a third of a cup of sugar. Butter. Woo. Turn my heat down just a little bit. Did y'all hear that pop? We need 2 tablespoons of butter. So we'll put that in there. So we got our sugar, our cream, our egg yolk, butter, and we need just a little pinch of salt, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. And we're going to cook this until the butter melts. So you need to bring it to a boil. Make sure your butter melts, and then once it comes to a boil, you're going to cook it till it starts to thicken up. Now it has starting to thicken, it's bubbling, and it needs to cook at least 1 to 2 minutes, so just keep stirring it, don't let it scorch. It'll do that very easy because this is a small batch. And once this gets, the time is up, I'll take it off the heat and we'll put the rest of our ingredients in, which is our coconut, our pecans, and our vanilla. Okay, I'll turn the heat off. The recipe calls for 1/8 of a teaspoon of vanilla. I think I'm going to do about 1/2 teaspoon. And then we've got 1/3 cup of chopped pecans and 1/2 cup of coconut. I'm just going to stir this up good. Now, what you're going to do, let me get me a different thing to stir with. What you're going to do is once you get that stirred up, you need to cool it for about, it wouldn't hurt for it to cool 2 hours if you got 2 hours, so make it ahead of time. You can see how it thickened up. And that is your German chocolate frosting for your German chocolate cake. Okay, I'm going to put this aside and let it cool off. Let my cake cool off. Okay, and then we'll frost it in a little bit. Gravy to go on our dressing. I didn't boil a neck and the gizzards as we talked about earlier. That's usually how I would get my stock for my gravy. But we didn't do that. So we're just going to make a simple, really good gravy. Because it's just going to be going on top of our dressing. Some people don't even eat gravy on the dressing. My children and my grandkids do not want the gravy. Me and Mr. Brown and maybe other few members of the family might, but the rest of them want no chicken gravy on it. I don't know. But I do like it. I'm going to put a little bit of poultry seasoning in it, and it'll come together that quick. So you just need to melt your butter, about 2 tablespoons. That'll be plenty for just cooking for 2. Now, if I was cooking this for a bigger batch, I'd double and triple it. So I got 2 tablespoons of butter melting, and then you just need a couple big tablespoons of flour. So what you're doing is you're just making a roux, and you want to cook this roux for a little bit over a medium heat to make sure that flour gets cooked. I'm going to put a little bit of pepper I'm not going to put any salt right now until I taste it to see if it even needs salt after using my chicken stock. I'm going to put about a half a teaspoon at this point of my poultry seasoning. Don't let this burn, just keep stirring it. You can put your little bit of garlic powder, a little bit of onion powder if you want to, but this is just the way that we like it. Simple. It tastes good over your southern cornbread dressing. In this little recipe, you won't have a lot of it left over. Try to figure out what to do with it. So just let this cook a little bit. Now I'm going to add, first I'm going to add about a cup and let that cook and see how it's going to thicken up before I add any more to it. Okay, I ended up using just a cup and a half of my chicken stock. And you see how it's thickened up. I'm going to turn my burner off and set this to the side. And that's how fast we put together a really good gravy to put over our cornbread dressing. Okay, our chicken is going to be so easy, but so good. So, cooking for two can be a little bit tricky sometimes on, you know, turkey or no turkey, chicken, you know, what do we want to do? Now, I went and I thought about a Cornish hen. Per pound, they were way too expensive in my area, so we didn't go that route. I've got about a tablespoon of olive oil. I'm going to put a tablespoon of butter. Now I've got over here, what I've got is just a little over a pound of chicken breast. This is what I had in the freezer. Now you can use whole chicken breasts. These are skinless, no bone. But what I had was strips, so that's what I'm going to use. Now they'll cook up, you know, pretty quick and be good. So what you want to do is just season your chicken breast with stuff that you like to season with. I have this Badia complete seasoning. I absolutely love this stuff for chicken, especially. It's good on fish too. But I get this from Amazon. Also, one of my big favorites is called Greek Freak. This is it's from Spiceology. This is some really good stuff. It's good on chicken, pork, seafood, vegetables, turkey, mashed potatoes. Even use it in a salad dressing. I get this off of Amazon too. I'm going to just sprinkle some seasoning over. Now I'm using salted butter, so I'm not going to salt my chicken. So I'm just going to, I'm not really going to cook my chicken all the way through. I'm just going to kind of brown it on each side. That's all I'm going to do. Just season it up good with whatever seasoning you like. Like I said, this is just a little over a pound, so it's not really too much for me and Danny, especially if Danny wants maybe a leftover plate for the next day. Maybe a sandwich made out of it. But just season both sides with whatever you're using. I'm using the Greek Freak. That's a funny name, but this is some really good stuff, y'all. If I don't forget, I'll put the link down below in my Amazon store. It should be in my pantry, part of my store. This is excellent. Excellent. And this has lasted me and Mr. Brown a long time. I mean, a little bit goes a long way. But if you don't, you know, just use what you have. It even has some pepper in it, but I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit more pepper. Like I said, I'm not cooking this chicken all the way through because it's going to be going in a 350 oven here in just a minute. I just want to brown them. And you know, you could do this with a turkey breast. What I like to do sometimes is, if I find turkey breasts, you don't hardly ever find them on sale here, but I'll cut them in half and season them up good, and then brown them up like this, just kind of in a skillet. Get that skin good and crusty. Then I'll make me a good sauce to put over it. Stick it in the crock pot, the slow cooker, and let it cook. Maybe probably about 6 hours for a turkey breast. But I do have videos, and I'll put them links below, cooking turkey breast in the slow cooker. And then I've got one that is so good that I showed y'all, probably one of my first videos of Thanksgiving meal, is how I cut the whole turkey up. Divide the pieces on different sheet pans, because every piece of turkey, from your breast to your thigh to your wings, they all cook it differently. And I seasoned them up and cooked and roasted them like that. And people that done that said that they will never do it a different way. They'll never cook a whole turkey again, because everything come out so good. So I'm just going to brown this. Smells so good. Now I'm fixing to put, I've got a lemon that I had left over, and I got a little bit of chicken stock left over, some minced garlic, and if you want to, you can cut you up an onion and saute it too. So we got the chicken browned up, and I'm just going to take it out of the pan. It's not cooked. It'll finish cooking in the oven at 350. Okay, with the little bits that I got left here, oops, I'm sorry. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. And I'm going to put about a teaspoon of minced garlic. Just for about 30 seconds. I'm going to squeeze 1 lemon. And the lemon juice just gives it such a good, fresh flavor to it. Now this spice mixture that I've got, it's got thyme and rosemary. It's got everything in it. So, like I said, just season it up to the way you like it. Now let's see. I've got a little bit of chicken broth. It's about a cup. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let this evaporate down a little bit. I'm going to let it cook down just a little bit. Probably cook down by half a cup or so. So I'm going to turn my burner on higher. Let that come to a simmer and just let it cook down a little bit. You'll know that because it'll cook down by half a cup. And then we'll stick our chicken back in there. And we'll stick it in the oven for just probably about 20 minutes. Okay, you see how it's come to a good simmer. Probably give it about 4 or 5 minutes. Now some people will put a little bit of, if you cook with white wine or something like that, they would have put maybe half chicken stock and half white wine. But we put a cup and a, did I say a cup? Or a cup and a half? I think it's a cup of chicken stock. Okay, our sauce has reduced down. We're going to stick our chicken back in here. And I've got this in an oven-safe skillet. If you don't have one, you'll have to move it over to a baking dish. And I'm just going to flip each piece over. Okay, optional is to sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan before you stick it in the oven. Okay, we are going into a 350-degree oven for about 20 minutes.
Going west, did not protest my wandering ways. Ruby, she was pretty as they come, 28 years young and unafraid. She gave me shelter on the coldest nights, shaded me on summer days, and I had never known my place before, but that's what Ruby soon became. Ruby, she wasn't good at going fast, and the patience that I lacked I learned to grow. 'Cause Ruby had a way of breaking down, leaving me out there on the road. But she gave me shelter on the coldest nights, shaded me on summer days. So as we traveled across the country wide, Ruby set the pace. Ruby could be fickle and unfit, good as I would get at times. Ruby was the closest thing to home I'll ever know in this life. But Ruby hit that California sand and slipped right through my hands eventually. Ruby, I guess I knew it all the time. She was never mine to keep. She gave me shelter on the coldest nights, shaded me on summer days, and nothing ever felt like home again. Ruby went away.
Cooking for two, Thanksgiving dinner. Here is our southern cornbread dressing. Potato au gratin for two. We got our gravy for our dressing. Mr. Brown's favorite sweet potatoes with brown sugar. And of course, I had to cook him some sweet peas. Here's our hot rolls. And here is our lemon garlic chicken. We got some fruit salad, some ambrosia, and a small German chocolate cake. So I hope y'all enjoy. I almost forgot our little thing of a while back when we made the cran raspberry relish. This is the reason we made it, to eat it with our dressing. I almost forgot about it. What do you think about having Thanksgiving for just us two?
Well, I'm here to tell you, I feel like I need to have my Sunday go to meeting clothes on. What a wonderful meal.
I mean, it's an easy meal. Just enough for two. We got your chicken, we got hot rolls that I put some honey butter on top of. Of course, I had to make you some sweet peas because I know how much you like sweet peas. We needed something green on the table. So instead of green beans, I chose peas.
Oh,
Was that a good choice?
very good choice.
Will you put me some dressing on my plate? Now it's hard to make even a smaller batch of dressing than what I made here. But there's enough for a couple days of eating and putting in the freezer or whatever.
You want me to just doctor you
Yeah,
up
just doctor me up. Put me a little of that gravy on top of that dressing.
on chicken too?
No, just the dressing. Okay.
Carrots.
That's sweet potatoes.
Oh, sorry.
That is your brown sugar sweet potatoes.
They're small, and I thought they were.
They're small enough to look like carrots, huh?
I just kind of thought they was
I
carrots.
know. We do that, don't we?
Yeah, I love carrots like that too.
We cut them carrots up and we cook them down in some brown sugar and butter.
I'm hungry. Late in the afternoon, and
Yeah.
not really late.
No?
I haven't eaten anything since breakfast. We've been so busy. I've been out putting duck blind on my boat. I ordered it from a gentleman from Columbus, Nebraska. And it's pretty neat. I worked on it. I got in late yesterday afternoon. I worked on it to midnight last night, and I've been working on it all day, but I'm done. Pretty well done with it.
It's really good.
It's delicious.
So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. So many of y'all wanted me to do cooking for two, especially cooking for two for the holiday. So I hope this kind of inspired y'all, maybe some, some of it is traditional. Pretty much all of it is, I guess. But when Thanksgiving Day gets here, I'll be cooking about triple this much for the kids and the grandkids. But there's so many that are just cooking for two or even cooking for one. Now I can tell you, I believe that this would feed 3 people for
Oh, yeah.
sure. So
It would feed 3.
yes, it would. So this would be a good meal for 3 people too. 2 people, you're gonna have maybe a few things left over, not very much. But anyways, I enjoyed doing it. So we'll just say happy Thanksgiving, cooking for 2.
Every day's Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, this sauce you made, I love it.
It's good. It's even developed more that it's been sitting in the
Yeah,
refrigerator.
it's good stuff. I love cranberry, and this is really good. I've eaten it with pork. It's good pork.
We can't let the kids know we've already had Thanksgiving without them. You think they'll find out?
Well, that's delicious, dear. Really good. I won't be worth nothing after this.
You can do dishes.
Do the dishes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-mm-mm. I may have to have a nap before I do dishes.
I made a little fruit salad and then a German chocolate cake for two. Little big German chocolate cake.
I see that.
One of my favorites is German chocolate.
Yeah, I love that icing. This was special. I had Thanksgiving twice, don't I? Yum, yum. This cranberry sauce, I believe I could. Told someone I could eat this on biscuit. It'd be good on a biscuit.
Nee, I might need some help doing dishes.
My goodness, woman, what a mess.
We're a mess.